This is the overview introduction video help for Office Administrations Manager. What is this application? Well, this application was designed for a single user in the iOS environment for an iPad or an iPhone. In this particular screen, this is the introduction screen when the application opens that includes an app navigation drop-down menu. This allows you to go to any screen in the application by one tap and go to that individual screen. Now, in this application, the primary two screens are the customer information and the employee screen. The customer information is where you collect information for customers where you're making appointments and or any contact that you're going to have with them in the main calendar, which is in this area. We're going to be discussing this in a minute. The employee screen is for the employees in your company and what contact information is required as far as how they interact with the CRM implications. CRM being Customer Relationship Management. This process is a series of different events that occur. They may be doing contacts where they contact somebody by phone or have an email that they send to them or message them, or where the employee is interacting with other people within the employee staff in your company where it relates to CRM. This allows the information that is being managed in a normal CRM to be disseminated through more than one person in the company. How is that important? Well, CRM normally as a product is a one individual type of an input where somebody is an overseer for all the information for CRM. What this application does is it moves that more downstream to each employee and also still allows one individual to manage, say, the customer information. What would be the difference between those two ways? Well, let's take a look at, first of all, customer information is something that is unique to either marketing and or sales groups in a typical environment. And the individuals within the employee staff, if they're a project manager or somebody who is directly involved with the customer, needs this information in order to make contacts either with the primary contact within a company or individual related contacts within that company. Now, in this application, you can have any number of company and customer information screens with the related client information for each individual that is related to that primary contact. Each employee within the company may be making contact with either one or more companies. This is pretty obvious that if an employee has contact with individuals in a company or the primary contact, that information is very important to the marketing group or other people that are in the company that have to rely on information that's taken from customers. Obviously, there's also vendor information that's related to that, where the vendors that support the customer contracts need to be involved, but that's an employee level thing in most cases where either somebody in the purchasing group or somebody who sets up contracts with the individual supporting vendors needs to be identified. Well, when you start using this application, you'll recognize that this allows you to, each employee can either contact information for customers, vendors, or within the same company contact other employees where it's critical to the CRM effort, and they can trade information back and forth. Let's take a look at the main thing that's going on in the calendar. This is called the Advanced Calendar, and basically what it does is it provides a on-site ability to see everything from day to day that is going on within each month, within a day, week, month, year, or list view of all the activity that's going on, so that individuals themselves or people that are supporting the CRM process can have a roadmap of all the activities that are going on and whatever is going on individually on each date. So let's take a look at the date. In this screen, what happens is there was an appointment created by tapping on the daily appointment plus here, and it creates a record in each row for each appointment. Now, an appointment can be something that is a contact, it could be a meeting, it could be some thing, for example, where you have a requirement to send something to a customer or receive something from a customer on a date when it's supposed to be returned or received. And it's critical to the contracting and management of information to know where and when things are happening. Let's take a look at the individual record. The first thing it does is has an arrow at the end of the record where you can tap on that, or you can tap on the actual text here in this area under the title to open a different screen to edit the information in each row. So in this case, I've got a arrow that I can tap, and what it does, next thing it does, it has each individual activity that's in the row for an appointment or whatever is numeralized with a number. The next thing is a priority. There's a low, medium, and high priority, and those are set in the screen that opens up when you take this record and view it. It's assigned, in this particular case, for the single user version, it's always going to be admin unless you create another new user. If you do create users, you're going to have to log in using a username and password. Right now, the application is set up as a single user environment where no one has to log in. It's basically set up to receive all records as admin for administrations, just like it is up here. If this application is upgraded where it's multi-user, then you would have to have users with logins to access individual records in the application. The next thing is a start date. When you're editing this record, there will be a start date where you edit the record, and its end date is in the same. It could be the same date or a date in the future. And if you do it in a future date, say for example you start here on the 13th and maybe it's the 16th, there'll be 3 record dates, one for each day that is in that range on each one of these screens. When you open this up and you want to see the activity that's going on and you tap the middle button here, it's going to show you the current date that is on the calendar for that particular date that you're viewing it. If you take these 2 arrows here, either go backward or forward, it's going to allow you to move up and back, or you can use the calendar down here to see if there's an underline under any one date. It tells you there's an activity for that date. In this particular case, I put an example record in, called it example record, for Sunday, March 13th. And you'll see down here that there's an underline. If you have this little check mark in there, it's going to go ahead and make sure that those are shown for each day where there's an activity. And then the current date, in this case, is Monday the 21st of March 2016. So that date is highlighted in green. So there's a past activity here. And in this particular case, it was not completed on time that it was supposed to. So it actually expired because it was not shown as completed by putting an X in here. If you put a check in there, you'll see that this disappears and it shows that it's actually completed and that the schedule was met for whatever it was supposed to do. Now, as you can see, it also erased the requirement here. Let's take it out, and you'll see what will happen is there's a drop down in this area here where you can actually change the activity that's in there. At the top, there's also a underline header, which allows you to go in and edit the list of drop-down items within this area here. Let's actually go in and look at the editing record. What it does is it brings up the record in this screen. You can see that it's got the icon that's in each record where if you click on it, it gives you different attributes up here that you can go in and change the icon the way it looks for the screen. This gives you visual recognition within the calendar as to what is the actual thing that's going on in the screen. If you go over here, you can see the priority, low, medium, and high priority. You can tap on one of these to set the priority for that particular appointment as is its importance. Down here, if you had a multi-user environment, you would have more individuals or more things that would be listed here. And if you place a check in any of the check boxes for those additional items, what it will do is it will have individual calendars for each one of those produced, where that particular event or type of thing or person, whatever it is in there, would now have its own individual calendar. And by logging into it with its username and password, you'd be able to see it individually. The next thing, looking at this, is the start date and the time. So this would be the date that this activity starts and the time that it starts. Then the finished date and time is when it concludes. And if you look up here, you have the title for this particular activity. In this case, I put an example record with a colon, which is basically the attribute that describes what this is going to be. It's a good idea to put that attribute in so that when you're reading it on the calendar, you understand what this is supposed to be for. It could be an appointment, a meeting, or a delivery, or a pickup of some information, or a record that needs to be identified as far as something that was done and you wanted to mark it on the calendar as a completion. and then the actual narrative about that particular thing. The title would also have an appointment here as far as the data that would be required to explain what this is for this particular event. There is the ability to go ahead and complete this event from this screen if you needed to. If you had to delete it, say for example you put it in incorrectly and you do not want to continue putting it on the calendar, you can come in here and delete it. Once you delete something, it takes the whole record and it disappears from both the calendar and from this screen. Then there's another button which is called a popover, and in this particular case, if you click on the popover, what it's going to do, it's going to pop up and give you the option to pick the appointment person for this particular record, that being the client person, either the primary. In this case, if I look in here, I'm going to get all the primary people in here. If you created another secondary record for a person within the company that you're doing CRM with, maybe in this particular case it's a marketing person, maybe you want to have another one for a production type of supervising person where you want to contact them and track them as far as CRM is concerned, then you can add that particular information in here. Now this drop down would include in alphabetical order all the people that are clients. So if you wanted to, you would just pick it up and scan through them until you find the one you want. In this particular case, obviously they're going to be alphabetical, so it's very easy to find them. When you click on them and pick them, say for example, I'll pick this one, and you'll see what it'll do is it'll pop over to the next thing here, and you can put the appointment status, which is what we showed on the main screen and the other on the calendar itself. And you have all these different types of events that you can add additional things to that tell what is going on with this particular client. So I can put in there, let's say, called the client, and then it goes to the next screen. And this information down here can be edited for correction if it needs to. But this is supporting information from the back end of the application, where once you create a client record in the back of the application, that is what now will show up in here every time you pick a primary contact. You can also keep notes down here that also show in the primary contact record about this particular client. And it's in general, it's not specific to this particular appointment or event. This is things that you may want to add. You can put an infinite number of items in here, and you can stack them at the top or at the bottom depending on where you want to edit the information within all the text that's in this field. Now all this information, when you go to the back of the application, can be searched for in what we call a find. A find is used in order to find information about a particular event or item that is listed on any one of these fields. And you can also combine those. So for example, if you wanted to say, I want everybody from Sedona, Arizona, I'd put in Sedona in Arizona, then everybody would come into records in selection from that in a find. Or say, for example, Sedona in the zip, this particular zip. If you've got multiple zips, maybe you want to look at those for CRM purposes. Down at the bottom, there's a secondary contact. There's a primary and a secondary. If you cannot contact this person and you need to find out something from somebody else, there's a secondary contact. Information for the primary contact, there are 2 phones in case, and another 2 phones down here for the secondary person. And you can always make notes about the other person as well. And you also have an email for the secondary and primary people in this record. And also a cell phone if you need to in order to contact them. So there's an awful lot of information going on in the screen. When you're using this application and you're looking at a popover, the best way to remove the popover from the screen is tap on either the button itself that you got it from or any white area on the record. If you click on something else in the record, it may have something that happen than other which you want it to. So it's either click on the button or a white area. Let's now go back to the main screen calendar. The rest of what we're going to show in the main screen calendar is that you see we can change the status we did on the other screen. In this particular case, if I wanted to add items to this drop-down list, and this is the drop-down list, I could go ahead and click the header at the top of the screen and then make an edit in that area. Now the other stuff that we're going to be showing here is optional. If you have a multi-user environment, you could go to the user environment area and add by hitting the plus, a new user, and you'd be required to add a user identification, first name, last name, and their user, let's go ahead and look at this, their user login is the main thing. Down here would be their email if you wanted them to receive emails from this account, and then you'd have to give them a password before you can complete this. And you can also put an image in here for that particular person if you wanted to. close by clicking on the close. Go back to the main screen. If you want to get back to the calendar, you click in the calendar and it brings up the calendar. You can see the week. If you're in the week, month, and so forth, you can see each one of these. Here's the daily, up here is the weekly. If you click on this, it'll open the screen we showed to edit. If you want to add another record on that date, you can tap here, or you can go to the calendar for that particular date that you're looking at. Say, for example, there's something in here and I want to go see that. All I'd have to do is tap on the 15 to go see that particular item. If we go to the month, same situation. You've got the plus and the date, and you can pick the date and the plus or whatever to go see that particular event within the edit part of the screen. Then there's users again. Now, we do not have you use the multi-language. This is for an administrator to change, where they're changing a lot of interior stuff within the application. If you edit things in here, it can cause problems for the application to function properly. So unless you go back to the administrator, you are not going to be using or editing this information within this screen area here. Okay. If you have questions other than that on the calendar, you can click this question mark, and there's a website that allows you to get more additional information for step-by-step usage of the calendar. The last thing that I want to point out in here is you do have the ability to do a search within the calendar by typing a phrase or word in here, and or in the individual calendars in multi-user. If you tap here, there'll be additional calendars that you can pick that were added with a username and password, and in that case, what you're going to get is an individual calendar for each individual activity that you have up here as far as a user and or some kind of an event that you are following in your calendars. It could be meetings or shipment or something like that as an example. Okay, if you have questions about how the calendar is used or you need assistance with something on the calendar, go ahead and contact us at the developer's website. And the way you can do that is you can navigate to the employee screen, and there's an additional thing called Do Actions. You tap on that, and then you go all the way down and tap on the developer link, and that'll take you to the developer's website. Thank you.